Greetings everyone. In this video I'll be covering the topic of the psychosocial roots of imbalances in the throat chakra and correspondingly with thyroid issues. The throat chakra is the chakra located around the throat area of the body, so it's a subtle energy center that governs the flow of energy coming through that area. These chakras, or energy vortices, are a key part of our energy system. So if any chakra is in some way congested or out of balance, then it will have some significant effect, perhaps on our physical health or our emotional and psychological health. With the throat chakra, we have a chakra that represents communication. Communication involves using our voice, expressing ourselves, asserting ourselves, as well as listening, being able to hear, to receive what others have to share or say. Since we grow up in a society or a family or a culture where other people have their particular patterns of communication, we often adapt to that, to our environment, to our social surroundings. This is particularly evident in our childhood as we're adapting to our parents, to our family, and trying to get our physical and emotional needs met in that environment. People often develop a particular pattern of communication based on how they adapted to those early environments. Let's suppose that you had parents who were very neglectful of you in a sense, who didn't really listen to you much. So from their point of view, what you had to say wasn't really that important. They were perhaps more concerned with directing or disciplining you, with guiding your behavior according to their desires or demands. So in that case, if a child were to speak up and express what the child is thinking or feeling, the parent might act as though that's not important, that it's not appropriate for a child to talk back, perhaps. And with that occurring, the child has certain ways they may react or cope with that scenario. One response would be for the child to kind of pull back, to ingrain this idea that no one's going to really listen to me, so there's really no point in attempting to speak up. So they'll become more shy, more quiet, perhaps more compliant. Another way to react might be for that child to actually attempt to raise their voice or speak out even more, to really demand attention, in a sense to rebel against those authority figures, and maybe even appear oppositional or defiant. So to go overboard in that other direction in trying to get someone to listen to them. So those are two polarized opposite reactions to the same particular environment or scenario. And since we're all unique, we all have our own particular way of interpreting a situation and reacting to it. There may be some common themes that exist, some archetypal patterns, but not everyone will interpret or respond to things in the same way, even if it is the same scenario or circumstance. Another way that parents may be treating or interacting with their children is to be actually intentionally or overtly suppressive of a child's speech. So a parent may be harsh, may be very demeaning or condescending toward a child when the child speaks. So they may give some type of negative feedback to that child. And when that occurs, again, the child may withdraw, or the child may attempt to exert their power even more actively or aggressively, in a sense, to try to get their needs met. With communication, we can go to one extreme or another, and this is actually very common in our society. It's somewhat abnormal, in a sense, to find people who are maintaining a very balanced pattern of communication. Those extremes or imbalances tend to actually be more of a norm. In much of the culture or society that we exist in, people are in some way attempting to silence others, to not allow other people to speak and express what they're feeling and thinking. There are various reasons for that. It may be to keep power or control in a particular situation. It may be out of fear. So if people have different ideas or different thoughts and viewpoints to express, sometimes people feel threatened. They don't want their own views or their own perspective challenged. And there could be other reasons why people feel a need to attempt to suppress the speech of others. Whether we consider those reasons valid or not, it's part of the reality that we're experiencing, and it's helpful to reflect on it, to examine how for ourselves and others we're coping with those situations, how we're adjusting or adapting to those efforts to suppress speech or to in some way manipulate the flow of communication. If we consider what happens when someone becomes overly aggressive with their speech, we may be perceiving someone who's trying to communicate, in a sense, from a lower chakra level. What I mean by that is they're trying to communicate with the purpose of claiming or reclaiming power. In that sense, they may be neglecting to use some of the higher chakras, so they may be impulsively speaking, perhaps blurting something out that is kind of thoughtless or hurtful toward others, rather than stopping to think about what they're saying or stopping to have compassion or empathy for how someone else might feel. Ideally, when we communicate, we would be able to access all of those chakras, to be able to use our third eye and crown, to have some wisdom with our speech, and to access our heart, to have empathy and compassion, to have some feeling for others and how our speech might affect other people. To have that balance there where we can express ourselves, not feeling constricted in that way, yet also not speaking in a way to condemn or attack other people. To have more of a dialogue or open communication rather than to have some type of a power struggle, in a sense, with our communication. We can seek to build understanding when we communicate rather than to in some way compete with anyone else. This is of course a challenge, especially when the other people involved are not approaching this communication scenario with the same perspective. As we look at communication and the throat chakra, we'll find that when there's some disruption or disturbance in the communication pattern, we'll find the energy there is in some way out of balance. there might be a lack of energy in the throat chakra, in a sense, a congestion there where we're not able to use that chakra enough, not enough energy is flowing through there. There could also be an excess of energy built up in that area where we're actually over-focusing in a way on communicating or speaking. Someone might be talking too much in a sense relative to letting others speak. They might be speaking without compassion for others or without thinking, so they might have this big buildup of energy there where they're just blurting things out, impulsively voicing whatever they're feeling, whatever is in their mind, and not really making much effort to regulate their speech in a more efficient or productive way. So as an energy healer, when I'm tuning into a person's aura, I would begin to sense those different shifts or different variations in the energy flow. When I do that session, I'm working to clear and balance that energy flow as much as possible so that the person can feel things flowing more smoothly, perhaps, so communication comes more naturally and effortlessly, where they don't feel blocked from expressing themselves when they need to, and they're also not communicating in an aggressive manner, where they're forgetting to access the head and the heart, the higher chakras and the heart chakra. We all have the power and potential to improve our communication. This is an ongoing challenge. We live in a society where these issues are very common. Even looking on the physical level, we'll find that a large percentage of the population have thyroid imbalances, and that in some manner is a reflection of the imbalances in our communication. The endocrine gland gets pushed out of balance as the energy flow is disrupted. So as we work energetically, we can also have a beneficial effect on the thyroid gland, on our physical health. I appreciate each of you for taking your time to view this presentation. And for those that are looking to learn more about these subjects of holistic health and spiritual healing, I invite you to visit my website at www.phinsights.com. For now, I want to wish everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.